Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're refreshed and ready for the next speaker, who is Ian Thompson. He is a multidisciplinary character artist whose career spans multimedia studios, advertising agencies, and the gaming industry. He originally trained as a product designer. He transitioned into illustration before immersing himself in the world of 3D games, where his passion for storytelling and visual identity truly took root. So, please join me in welcoming Ian Thompson.
Thank you. This is probably my 8th time coming to this venue myself, and it's great to be back. So I'm going to be talking to you obviously about character design and what is character design. And I want you to think about that and just hold that thought for a moment, because it isn't as obvious, and it wasn't as obvious to me when I started, when I left school, of what it actually was and what it actually meant to be a character designer. So my plan through this presentation is really just to talk through my process and how I came to understand what a character designer is, and also all the other explorations that I did in order to get to that point. It is not a very linear process that I've been through. It's not been, oh, I wanted to do this at the very beginning, I left school, and this is where I am now. It's definitely an exploration of trying different things and then deciding this is where I want to be. This is where I'm sort of destined to be, if you like. So my journey, it started off, I had one passion when I was little, and that was drawing. That was the only thing I liked to do. My mum was very happy about that, because all she needed to do was buy me a pencil and paper. She didn't need to buy me any toys or anything like this. The pencil and paper was enough. And so she never stopped buying me paper and pencils and crayons and all the rest of it to keep drawing. And when I started out, obviously it's around about the 1980s, this is, and I grew up with films like Rambo and Terminator. And one of the things that we used to do is used to go to the video shop, and all these movies would be out there. All these movie covers, posters would be visible. And the one thing I always wanted was the Terminator poster. I never had it. And that was the one I used to just stand and look at. It was just an amazing movie, and I just wanted to be part of that movie. And what I found was that drawing helped me actually to become part of the movie. It's a way of extending that experience of that movie. So I'd start drawing my own little scenarios of it, drawing in different circumstances, and obviously all the gory bits, I loved drawing those bits as well. And the same with Rambo movie, with the Rambo franchise as well. I was constantly drawing the Bowie knife that it had. I was a little bit too obsessed with that. So you can see, I just kept drawing. I just filled sketchbook after sketchbook. Some of them didn't make any sense. I did try to find some of my early ones. I don't know if any of you know the TV series called V. And I was obsessed with that TV series, and I always used to draw scenarios of that and how I would have done it. And I don't know if you do know the thing, but basically there were aliens that came down, and they had face masks which covered their true identity, which was lizards. So it was always a constant thing of these things being pulled off their faces and showing these, and again, unhealthy obsession with faces being pulled off. So these were the kinds of things that I was looking at. When I was at school, I was always interested in graphic design. I started to look at a book called Design and Presentation Techniques. And this was interesting to me because through the movie experiences and drawing, I was always interested, I started to get interested in the concept art side of. So I was always looking at people like Ralph McQuarrie, who drew the concept art for Star Wars. And I love that sort of design flair that he had in his designs. Another one would be Sid Mead, another concept artist. His work was used in the Blade Runner movie, and also in Alien a little bit as well, for the interior of the ship. So I went away with this book, and then again, this is where I want to go. So this was a direction that really started me off in terms of a career. It wasn't now just enjoying a movie and trying to reenact that movie on paper. This was more about, okay, now I've got a direction, a design direction, and I was just basically using books to help me focus that. So I was looking at different media to do that, so like painting with watercolour, and also markers, pencils, and I was starting to explore more of the media side of things. The other book that I was really interested in was How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. This was a book that I bought, and it was only because I was just about thinking of how do I improve the sort of character level of things. So I thought this was a book that would help me with the construction of characters, which was more important for me to get the proportions right, because even though I love drawing these film posters and things like this, they weren't that great in terms of proportion. So it was kind of like I need to teach myself how to sketch quickly and get the proportions right. Because when you're drawing and designing characters, it's very difficult to just have the patience to work on something that's very basic. In other words, you go jumping straight into the details of, oh, let's put the webbing on Spider-Man's costume or something like this, rather than getting the athleticism of that character and the sort of essence of him before you start with those fiddly little details. So this book helped me a lot to basically stop going into the detail level and think more about construction, which is basically what I was interested in with the design side as well, how to construct a design. So this is where it started to sort of, as I said, form a career path or direction at this point. So with the Design and Presentation Techniques book, I was looking at this and I thought, product design, this is what I want to do. I was so interested in that book, and I really enjoyed using the markers, and I just thought I want to just make products. So I did a BA in product design, and then after that I did a multimedia design, an MA in multimedia design as well. So I've kind of skipped a little bit there, but back to the product design. This was my kind of university work that I did. I was really interested in virtual reality, and so for my final project, I kind of designed this, and this was back in 1993, by the way. I know it's all changed now. So it was very hardware focused back in those days. Very big, heavy headsets that they used to wear. You were enclosed in a huge, I don't know what it was, where you could walk within this sort of framework. But it was very, as I said, product orientated, which is why probably the designs look dated now, because at the time, I can say they were truly revolutionary, but no, they weren't. But one of the things I did get into as well was the fashion side, and I always thought that one day the technology would be integrated into the clothing that we wear. And this was a very crude attempt at me sort of integrating that. But as it was a product design course, I couldn't actually do a fashion item. I had to put some hardware on there. So that's where this shoulder piece and all the rest of it came in. So my drawing skills were coming into play because I could draw, I could design things as well. all the split views that you have to do on the course to show how something is constructed. It was all coming together in terms of a career. The models were part of that process. We had to actually create models for the designs. So these were just made of plastic and wood. That's all they are. So when I was doing working in multimedia, after my MA, I was basically looking at things like interfaces and that kind of artwork. The reason I transitioned from product design and went into multimedia was that some people on the course that I was on the product design course, they were using computers, and I was still into my markers. I was still into physically drawing things out, and I wasn't really catching on to the computer side of things as quickly as they were, and I was very impressed with what they were doing. But it was too late. I'd already done all that work. I'd already drawn all the things out. It was too late for me to do that. So that's why I decided I'm going to try and move into multimedia, and I want to do the next step of where I think I need to be going, which was at the time internet, interactivity, those sort of things were the things that were kind of like the new thing to be looking at. So I was doing a range of things from website design, UI design, games as well, and also print. So we can see over there that there's some print work that I was doing. And these were the kind of things where I was working as a freelance and also as part of a company. So on here there's a broad range of things that I was doing. One of the ones down here was for Channel 4 at that time, and we were utilising old Channel 4 footage that they had. So the Macbeth production that was made was just sitting there. It had been put on TV, and part of the courses for students were to understand Macbeth as part of, I don't know what it was, English maybe, I didn't know what the subject was for it. So one of the ways that we did this for the company I was working with at the time was we broke the video down into segments, and then we categorized it in an interactive way. It made learning Macbeth a little bit more interesting than just sitting watching from start to finish and not really understanding what it was about. So here we could categorize it and click on various parts. So maybe I didn't understand what he meant in Act 4, so I can go back and then I can sort of drill down into that knowledge, but have this essential piece of video there to do that with. So I could watch it all through, or I could drill down into parts for revision, let's say. Other aspects of it were the sort of fraction stations, which were games for Channel 4 as well, where there's a thing called the Grid Club on the web, and this was one of the games that we produced. It's not there anymore, but so the idea of this was teaching maths to children as well, and being able to use fractions. So the robot walked around, it exploded, it went into all different rooms, and then you had to put that robot together again and say, oh, you've only made half of it, you've only made 3/4, you need another quarter. Right? So this was the basics of it. So adding those interactive levels. So there's website design as well. The one with the, I'll use the flashy pointer, this one down here, this was a little bit later on. So, and this was done for the Department of Work and Pensions, I think it's called. And this was to train people who worked in the DWP on how to deal with cases. So basically when you go there and you want some money from that department, there's all different scenarios and partners and circumstances that people have. So this was a training product designed to help people to come to terms with different scenarios that they may in fact encounter whilst dealing with the public. So I did a range of characters. There must have been over 100 different characters in there. But one of the reasons I got employed for that job was because of the work that I've been doing here, where I was making very simplistic and fast characters. So they were just saying to me, you've got lots to do, I can't afford to pay you this much money for each character. So I said, okay, here's a very quick way of doing it. And they said, great. Then I got that job. So with advertising agencies as well, I was doing digital artwork for print, point of sale and campaigns. So I did the artwork for Wacky Warehouse. I don't know if it's still a thing actually, but the Wacky Warehouse franchise as well. So I do all their character work and all the promotional items as well for them. This one down here was for Bargain Booze. They wanted a prototype, no, not a prototype, it was like a kind of a profile of people that would go into Bargain Booze and what they would have in their shopping bags. And so those were a couple of characters that I did from there. And this one's from Greg's. Oh, sorry. This one. This one's supposed to be for Greg's. And she's got cigarettes and thing there. And this one's got a bottle of gin in there as well. So these were the kind of things. I was also very interested in cartoons. So I started to work in cartoons as well, and I thought that was a good way. And this was from a Business Link. It was a thing, I don't know if it still is. A Business Link, and I made a calendar for them and did all different things for each month of the year. So after I did all this, I was always interested as well in teaching, funnily enough, and I had a friend who I worked with in a previous job. I wasn't very happy towards the end of the last section because it was just becoming a little bit stagnant, and he went off and worked at Wolverhampton University and said, come along, and because he'd seen me doing some courses, and he said you can teach the software and editorials and web design. So I took that chance and just had a little detour career-wise into teaching. It is something that I've always loved doing. I always, and I have actually continued this, but more on YouTube these days. And at the end of that, I had another pivot, and I was like, okay, I've got the 2D stuff down now, but I want to learn 3D. That's where things are going. I'd already been a little bit slow, as I mentioned before, on that side, but I wanted to focus this not more on design, but on characters. So I got this book here, which was a really good book because it broke down character creation into very simple forms, such as, I don't know if you know, but it's like the kidney bean shape when it comes to characters. And these characters on here are all from that book. It was just me looking at how he constructed his 2D artwork for animation, and then I just thought, I'm going to try and recreate those. And that was just a learning process for me to do that. But here's the thing where we move again, and this is where I move into more of a character design aspect. So it's all very well copying those characters and practicing. That's part of the process. But I don't really like copying work, because if, for example, I'm using Preston Blair's design work, I'm always being matched to Preston Blair, and I'll never be as good as Preston Blair. So I thought, I want to make my own stuff. I just want to make some characters. Now I understand how to do, I know how to draw them, I know how to model them. I want to make something that's a little bit different. So Colin and computers over there. This was a character that two colleagues of mine kept talking about. It was an actual person. He was just always discussed in the office. And he was this guy that was really into computers, and I had no idea what he looked like or anything, but I was just sketching and just listening to the stories. Colin does this, Colin was doing this, Colin, he loves Doritos, and so I just thought, what would Colin look like? He was a real person, I said, but I never met him. And I just said, right, now I know how to draw. Preston Blair's helped me to, model. Preston Blair's helped me to do that. Let's do Colin. And Colin was original. Colin was somebody that didn't exist beyond a conversation in an office. And then I moved on to other ones and thought, well, let's make some more characters. So I did Milkman, the full cream superhero. And it was basically just, in the olden days, and I don't know if it still happens, but you have a milkman coming around, you give him money on the Thursday in our case, and then every morning you come around and put the milk bottles outside. And I was very much into Monty Python. And I don't know if you know the scene of Bicycle Repairman. Bicycle Repairman was a superhero that actually fixed people's bikes. And it was the most unlikely superhero. And I thought, that's a nice sort of comic-y type of thing. So I wondered, what if the milkman was a superhero? I know it's ridiculous, I know it's stupid to think about it, but it's just really prompting that imagination and seeing where I can go with characters. The Wild Times characters here was a commissioned job where they asked me to produce a series of characters with a story around them. And this is where it gets a little bit more interesting as well, because story has a huge impact on a character. And so I had to design a bunch of 4 or 5 of these characters, which were a family. They were all different animals, but somehow they come together and as a family. And this was going to be used in a similar scenario to wacky warehouse outlets, that kind of thing. So one of the things that I was doing here was I was starting to create characters and narrative, and this is where it changed, because narrative for me now became really an important factor. I'd got the skills down, I knew how to draw, I knew how to model, but I didn't know what character design was yet, and character design is driven by a narrative, and this is where I went into more of a written version of doing character design. So, believe it or not, I was a swimming teacher as well at one point, and I used to coach at a national level. One of the things that always used to amuse me was the excuses that swimmers would come up with why they didn't want to train. It was something new every day, but you did see a pattern with certain people that didn't want to do the exercises or the things that they needed to do. So I did a cartoon about that. I created the character around that. Zeno was an idea that I had quite a few years ago, and about a young girl, archaeologist. Her parents were archaeologists, but she had the adventures, following them around. And Tilky the Fox was another one. Again, these were some interactive ideas as well, so this was all iPad-based, where the narrative and the character started to work together to form more of a comprehensive story. Then I wanted to be a 3D character artist, not a designer, a 3D character artist. The difference here is that basically I'm working for an art director, and an art director is telling me, our client wants this, our client wants that, and you've got to make it, and you've got to make it exactly how they want it to look. So an example being Hugo. It's a brand, I didn't know anything about Hugo at all, but it's very well known in Europe. But Hugo the Troll, I had to sort of make costumes for them. And we had different clients as well, with the mole. And then the characters were over here, all based on football players, basically. So I was moving more and more into the character side of things, where I was working in mobile gaming. So again, you can see Hugo down here. I just kept making costumes for him all the time, and those were selling within the game. can't remember his name now, Nia Houston, working similar types of thing. Ronaldo on Kick and Run. The costume designs that we were making, those were being supplied by Nike, and then I had to make really low poly versions of those as well. This was the biggest problem for me down here, was the Vikings job that we did in the company, which took me around about 3 months just to make Lagatha's nose how they wanted it. It literally was that bad. So we were working with MGM on this, and they had to sign off each of the characters, and I could not get Lagatha's nose correct, and it had to keep going back and forwards, and finally that was the one that they accepted. From there, there's no artwork on this because I kind of moved into more R&D side. So I was more interested, I was moving into pipelines, shaders, optimization of assets for games. And then I moved on to more of lead roles and art director type of roles at that point, which was a little bit less hands-on and really good because you get to order other people around and tell them what to do. But for me, you know, and for you, it's kind of like probably off topic a little bit. So I didn't put anything interesting on that slide. So when I started out, going back to the original thought that I asked you to hold, I essentially thought that character artists and character designers were the same thing. Character artists, though, are builders of the character, and character designers are storytellers of the characters. And that's the main thing from there. So when you look at this character, for example, probably you're all smiling and you can hear a voice in your head because it was such a distinctive voice. When you look at the artwork from the character artist point of view, it's very simplistic. But what drives this more so is the narrative, is the stories of them. And you probably, if you have ever watched it, I've watched so many of these with my daughter that I know quite a few. But if you've ever watched them, the story and the writing of it is so good and so humorous that adults can actually watch it along with their kids. And that was where the thing for me was, story is the key to doing characters. So everything changed basically when I stopped creating images and I started designing people. That was the important part. That's the way to become a better character designer. So this became a passion of mine to actually start writing. And I thought I was getting as much pleasure out of writing characters than I was in drawing them. So I wrote a whole comic book about Sister Agnes. So I grew up in I went to school in Catholic schools, and we had nuns in those schools, and the contradictions in those places was kind of gobsmacking at times. And I wanted to design a story. Okay, I'll embellish it a little bit and I will make it into more of an adventure, but I want to pull in those experiences that I had and bring them in and create a new character from that. So character design is about look and shape and style. Yeah, that's all fine. We've established that. But we also have to consider behavior and emotion, the actions of those characters as well. It's not enough just to put the artwork in front of somebody because it means nothing. You've got to start to think about what it is that drives these characters. What's the story behind them? What's the purpose? How do they fit into the world that they are meant to fit into? So I have these 4 pillars that I follow. So it's the function, the role and the world, and the story. Psychology, fears, desires and contradictions as well. They all must have this because it gives them the personality. How they move and speak and react to situations, and how their look expresses their inner world, Joker being an example of that. And at the end here, I think this is an important part where we say that characters are defined by their decisions. And that is a really thing, because all the influences and all the decisions that you make in your career and things, you know, those are things that are shaped. And it matters in your story, as it matters in mine, of how we got here or where we're going to go. So design tools, you know, if you're interested in this aspect of it and moving further forwards, there is always the pen and paper, which I would highly recommend. But you can also use the modeling and design packages as well. And I learned Lightwave 3D and 3D Codes. These are the main tools that I use for my work. But I also use these programs as well, Character Creator, which is this one. Again, you don't just jump in here and start messing around with it, because you're just going to end up with nothing at the end. Think about the story first, then jump into the package and make it. There's things like DAZ 3D, that's a free program, and MetaHuman as well down here. And these are all things that you can tweak. So getting a story together of the character, and now you've got the tools to actually just download for free and be able. Character Creator, by the way, isn't free, but you can get like a download copy of it for 30 days free trial. So these packages here, they cost, but for education purposes, they are free for you to use, and you can just test out and design your own characters. If you want a more hands-on approach, from having nothing in a scene to actually making something of it, whereas these other ones on the side give you a starting point of a character. So one of the things to explore as well, where do we put this? Where do we make, what do we make characters for? Who do we make them for? And this is an interesting aspect, because it's really opening up now with these platforms. So you've got on your phones, I don't know if any of you use any of these applications here, like Avakin Live, etc., designing outfits for those. I used to work at Lockwood that made Avakin Live. It was one of the art director type of roles and R&D roles that I did. So there are plenty of avenues for you to branch off into in order to make characters for. Not to say illustration and the more traditional sides as well. But here's one of the things that really sort of struck me in the last job that I had was the role play in things. I didn't realise what a massive, massive world this was in terms of characters and character design. When we've got these modded servers for Red Dead and GTA, that type of thing, where people are getting their own servers and creating their own worlds based on those core stories that we have in the games that we play. And so all the scripts and the sort of actions and things like this about a character that we've discussed in terms of narrative can be created with Lua scripts as well. So the elephant in the room at the moment is the AI, and where does that fit in? Now, for me, I use AI, and for me, it's a tool, just like Photoshop, just like Lightwave, just like 3D Code. It's one of the tools that's new and that's being introduced more and more. The way that I use it is I create my own data sets. So I actually use all my artwork, feed that in, and then have it jumble it all up and basically start to rework it. So it's recycling old things that I've got. Now, one of the big controversies about it is that sometimes when it started out, a lot of scraping happened on the internet of all different people's kind of work, and that became an issue for artists. And it's kind of like a thing of those artists never gave permission for that work to be scraped and used in a data set. And I'm talking about the big data sets now that are used in the big platforms. But creating your own data sets is utilizing the technology. and is a way of getting around. But it will be mixed with those original data sets. But as we carry on, it's going to change. I think it assists with your visual development, helps to overcome some technical barriers. If you don't like animating, you can now animate a character very easily inside of AI and start to see it move around, no problem. And it also, really importantly, speeds up production time, especially if you're working for a company. And that's one of the things I'm involved in at the moment, where I'm using AI to help move forwards production lines. So my last thing here is a character that I created with my friend Mohammed. He lives in Egypt, and we created this character together. This was a character that we've designed, and I created a story for it, and I'm hoping that if I click the next button, it will start to come on. No. Okay, so let me just...
Bruce, my man. How the hell have you been? You're a hard man to track down, you know.
Taylor, what are you doing here? It's been a while.
It's nice to see you too. Here, there's a job I thought you'd be interested in. Didn't you two, how can I put this? Work closely on another job.
None of your goddamn business. Is this it?
You're lucky to get that after your last gig.
The sum of our actions, that's all anyone remembers.
So, do you want to do it or not? I can give it to Harrison if it's too much for you.
Don't try and get smart with me, you worm.
It's fine, Bruce. Really. Calm down, my friend. I didn't mean anything by it.
Let me know when you want to start.
Right. Of course, my friend.
Is there anything else?
No, we're good.
I didn't think so. Now get the hell out of my way.
I'll, just be going then. Nice seeing you again.
Credits on because Pav did a talk here, and I spoke to Pav after hearing his talk here. I did used to work with him as well, so that's how I think Sharon was talking about it earlier, linking up with other people and using them So that's kind of like a breakdown. And there was only 2 of us really that were working on this, and we hired it, Hieroglyphics, again, a team in Egypt, helped us with the artwork as well for the environment side of things. And I used AI for the voices. Bruce's voice is my voice, actually, with the pitch down quite a bit because I've got a high voice. And one of the things that when I showed this to somebody, they said, we really like the AI voices, but Bruce sounds robotic. So this is one of the things that, you never can tell what people's reactions are going to be. I don't know if, oops, no. So, summing up, I've got a website, and I tend to blog a lot of techniques and things on there. So if you're interested particularly in the AI side and how I use it, there is a blog on my website. I also have a YouTube site as well where I teach and show techniques as well. So if you are into 3D modeling, there may be some things into there that you can pick up. So yeah, that's it.